Good evening. Welcome to the North Richland Hills City Council work session. It is 5 p.m. and I will call the Monday, April 13th, 2026 City Council work session to order. A quorum of the City Council is present and the meeting has been duly posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act of the Texas Government Code. Items listed for discussion on the work session agenda provide an opportunity for the City Council to discuss items and receive information from staff. The City Council will not take action on any of these items listed in the discussion during the work session. Any members of the public wishing to address the Council regarding items listed in the work session agenda may do so during the public comments portion of the regular meeting. First item is to give the Council the opportunity to ask questions on items of the regular agenda that the Council has not had clarification on at this time. Do y'all have anything? Oh, nope. Moving on to the next item, Paulette Hartman. We have a welcome and introduction.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Stephen Barnes. He's our new finance director. So new, he just started today. So,
welcome aboard.
So Stephen brings over 20 years of municipal finance experience. He previously worked as a finance director for the cities of Azle and Ennis. His experience also includes financial positions with the cities of St. Petersburg, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, and multiple agencies in Texas. He has a master's degree in accounting from the University of Texas at Arlington and a master's in public administration from University of North Texas. He's also a certified government finance officer. So welcome, Stephen, and this is who I'm sure you'll see a lot of him during the budget process. And Chase, don't worry, Chase isn't going anywhere.
Well, welcome. We got to meet today, and I commented on his really good haircut. Yes. And the same amount of prep time in the morning. You ready to move? Do you have anything else on that?
Huh? The new chief building official. Stephanie, you want to do that introduction? I apologize.
Okay, can you hear me now? So good evening, Council. I'd like to introduce to you Zachary Loisel. He is our new chief building official. So Zach, if you want to stand. Zach comes to us with over 20 years of building inspections experience. Recently, he's with the cities of Pilot Point and Salina. Zach's been with NRH for 2 weeks now, and he's already hit the ground running. I also want to recognize Cody Payne. You may have seen Cody or remember Cody from a couple of meetings ago. Cody has recently been promoted to the assistant building official. If you recall, Cody stepped in when we had a vacancy at the building official position, and he helped with the draft of the 2024 codes that we brought forward. So Cody's been here for 2 years. We hope he sticks around for a long time. So this is our new leadership team over the building inspections group.
Great. Welcome. Next, we're going to review the proposed ethics ordinance and amendments to the council rules of procedures. Councilmember Roberts.
Okay. As you know, all this information was posted, but for your convenience, council members, you have paper copies there. I'm going to be making references to that and encourage you to look. As you recall, at the February 23rd work session, the Ad Hoc Council Committee, made up of council members Delaney, Mitchell, and myself, presented a draft ethics ordinance and rules of procedure for discussion and to receive feedback from the City Council. Tonight, the Ad Hoc Committee will review proposed text changes in response to the direction and discussions at the February 23rd work session. Now, feel free to ask questions along the way, and once I'm through with the presentation, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions as well. If you would take the packet, the ethics packet that you have in front of you, turn to page 3, section 2-102, definitions. To alleviate confusion, line 87 was updated to read City Council/Council. These words are interchangeable. Both mean the governing body, which the city charter identifies as the mayor and council members. Okay. Look down to line 103. That's changed to read council member, which is defined as an elected or appointed official in places 1 through 7. Obviously, the city council proper, not counting the mayor. Turn to page 5, section 2-103D, standards of conduct. Lines 175 and 176. This is section 2-103D, refers to items that are not, I repeat, not prohibited by the ordinance. The language "shall not apply to" was emphasized with bold text to differentiate these items. That means that which is below does not apply to, that's to avoid confusion, is the reason that was done. Okay? Page 7, section 2-105H, City Council Code of Conduct, House Rules. Line 258, if you'll find that. Conduct of business in public forums was modified to remove the text "pending issue" and clarified the language to read the following, quote, "Discuss with a quorum of the City Council public business or public policy over which the City Council has supervision or control only in official City Council meetings posted in accordance with the Texas Opens Meetings Act, TOMA, not on social media or other informal platforms." Now, we felt as if "pending issues" was too broad and/or too restrictive. Now, if you'll turn to page 11, section 2-111, action on complaint. Line 409, if you'll find that line. The title was updated from violations to action on complaint, informing the public of the action of the City Council that the City Council may take following a complaint. This is basically a change of wording from violations to action on complaint. Okay. Now turn to page 12, section 2-114, acknowledgement of code of ethics. Remember, these are all things that we took in consideration coming back and saying these are the things that were changed, these are the things that were not. During the February 28th work session, City Council discussed the refusal of an officer to sign the acknowledgement form. Now, if you'll look at lines 437 and 438, the text was revised to address an officer's initial election or appointment or re-election, reappointment, and when the code of ethics is amended. In other words, this is when they receive a copy of the code of ethics. Now look at lines 441 through 445. This language addresses an officer's failure to sign the acknowledgement form and that such omission is eligible for a complaint to be filed against the officer. Okay? We'll go ahead and continue on to the council rules of procedure, then we'll see what questions that you might have. Moving on to the discussed changes, modifications to the council rules of procedure. Please turn to page 2, sections 2-56 and 2-59. At the February 23rd work session, there was discussion around the addition of the text "their designee" for the city manager. Upon discussion, review, and consultation with the city attorney, the language remains unchanged. In other words, even after the discussion, we deemed that it's best to leave it like it was. Okay? Please turn to page 4. Section 2-64A, meeting agendas. Now let me note that it is the city manager's job to create the agenda for the city council meetings. The city attorney recommended language to align with the city's current practice that provides a method for the city council to request future agenda items as outlined in section 2-64, subsection C. Okay? Please turn to page 7. Look at section 2-67E10, public participation or decorum. There was discussion regarding the announcement of decorum, the city's current practice, and the use of phrases should, shall, or may. The language was updated to align with the city's current practice that allows the chair of the meeting to announce the need for proper decorum at the beginning or during the meeting if the chair deems it necessary. Now, as a reminder, the rules for decorum are shown in the council chamber before each city council meeting. And now turn to page 8, section 2-68F. Order of precedence of motions. There was no opposition at the February 23rd meeting to remove motion to adjourn the meeting, so this was removed. This is consistent with the current practice, and the chart was updated accordingly. And finally, following the February 23rd meeting, there was discussion about what constitutes a quorum. If you want to look back to page 1 of that same packet, page 1, section 2-52, we're going to let Bradley clarify what constitutes a quorum. So if you'll address that, please, Bradley.
I'd be happy to, Councilmember Roberts. Under state law, the Open Meetings Act establishes the requirement of what rules we have to follow to gather as a public body, governing body, and part of that is to define what a quorum of the body would be for a meeting. That under the Open Meetings Act, it's defined as a majority of the governing body. With that understanding, then, to determine a quorum for our governing body, we then turn to our local regulations, first being the charter. The charter establishes your governing body as 7 city council members and the mayor, which means you have 8 members of your governing body, and majority of that governing body would be 5 to reach a majority. And for that reason, based upon those definitions, that a quorum for our city council meetings is 5 members of the governing body. So that could be established by the mayor and 4 council members or 5 council members.
Okay. Any questions about that? We have
So-
a lot of discussion on that.
Just one quick, so let's just say, for instance, in executing that, instead of have the 3 for the ad hoc committee, we could have had 4 now. For this ad hoc committee, we could have had 4 going forward based on this, right?
Yes, you could.
Okay.
That's correct.
I just wanted to make sure the use was going forward for anything like that.
Yes, that is true.
Okay, all right.
Okay, we've gone through the considerations of what y'all brought up at the meeting, and we are now open for questions, and I would encourage our entire committee to jump in. What questions might you have?
Tim, have a question? Kelly?
No questions, just appreciate y'all taking into consideration all the comments from last meeting and incorporating those. So great job for all 3 of you.
Mayor, I might just add, just a note, if you recall, this has gone through a couple steps. The ethics ordinance in particular started at the ad hoc committee. It's come to the council here in work session several times for conversation and revision. Tonight it's going to go to the open meeting for the first time. It might be for that'll be an opportunity to have some discussion as a part of the open meeting. And so to the extent there's an opportunity to deliberate a little bit about the ordinance, how we got to where we are in that open meeting, it may be a good idea for us to do that this evening.
Oh, I think that would be terrific, yes. Does anybody have any comments or questions? I too, I really appreciate Cecile, Russ, Danny, y'all taking on this and doing it. I think it's something that was long overdue. As far as, I think there was a fine I saw that we can impose on someone for violations, if we all agree. Is that right? Did I see that somewhere?
Yeah, $500 fine.
Yeah. How would that be administered? I can see the refusal to pay for someone that's disgruntled and angry. How does it, what would be that next step after that?
Now, one penalty under 2-112 is for filing a false complaint. So submission of a complaint that's not valid, that's not supported with sufficient evidence could be presented as a criminal complaint through the municipal court and could be prosecuted in that manner. Punishment of that, of course, is limited to a fine up to potentially $500 as is limited by state law.
Okay.
So that would be.
So like any
the
other
opportunity.
fine that goes through the city ordinances?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Apart from a zoning or public health issue.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, that $500 is the limit.
Okay, okay, thank you. So y'all did, I mean, you captured everything we discussed, so.
Okay. And like you said, if there's no further questions, there's an item on the regular agenda to consider the ethics ordinance, and that will be done in the regular meeting. Okay, thank you.
So coming from the ad hoc committee in the presentation, do we need a motion? Because a lot of times you don't need a motion that's something that came from the committee.
When you say a motion, do you mean when this is considered in the open meeting tonight?
Uh-huh.
It will require a motion from council. The ad hoc committee was intended to do some behind-the-scenes work, some foundational prep work, but ultimately, this is an ordinance that has been considered and deliberated a few times by the council and will be an additional time this evening. It is an official action of the council as a whole to adopt it, and it
Okay.
will require that.
Okay, thank you. Now Bradley, you're up. You're going to review where we are with terms and term limits now that the city has voted on it before, obviously, but it will become real here very shortly.
Mayor and council, thank you. I do, at the last council meeting, you requested an update on the charter amendment election and what that does for city council terms and term limits. So just a little bit of a recap. The council called an election for November 4th of 2025, just this past year, for the public to consider 6 propositions to amend the city's charter. All 6 of those propositions were approved by the voters. Those propositions covered not really a wide array, but I think I've got 8 bullets on the list, right? The 3-year term for city council and the transition to same. It defined what a term is for purposes of establishing and defining term limits. It established term limits for the city council. They established a time for appointment due to vacancies that occur on the city council. Established the resign to run for city council members. Allowed the municipal court judge term to be different from the mayor's term. It amended the term of the Planning and Zoning Commission members to coincide with the council or city council member terms, and it updated the competitive bidding language. As requested, I've focused my presentation tonight on the 3-year term for city councils, and what the transition looks like for that, as well as the term limits for city council and what you can expect going forward. First, the 3-year term, all city council members, including the mayor, will now serve 3-year terms. And one thing the state law requires is that when you have a 3-year term or more than a 2-year term, that all members be elected by majority vote. It means if you have 3 people running and no one gets a majority, you have a runoff election. The city was already operating in that manner. Just wanted to note it's now a necessity under state law because we have the 3-year term. That is found in Article 5, Section 3, subsection 1 in the city's charter. What does the transition look like to the 3-year terms? Everybody that's currently sitting on the council serving a 2-year term. However, May of 2026, so the upcoming election, the mayor and council members place 2, place 4, and place 6 will be elected to a 3-year term. Next year, in May of 2027, council members place 1, 3, 5, and 7 will then be elected to a 3-year term. In May of 2028, we will not hold an election unless necessary for some other reason. But as long as everybody is still in their position and fulfills the duration of their term, there won't be an election required for the council in May of 2028. And again, these provisions are located in Article 5, Section 3, subsection 1 as well. That's how we will get to everyone on the council serving 3-year terms. Then we have term limits that are also put in place. So beginning with the terms that start in May of 2026 and May of 2027, at the same time that the 3-year term was adopted, we have to transition to that. That is when the term limits were adopted. And so every term that begins after the adoption will be counted towards the term limits. A person can only serve 3 terms as mayor, up to 3 terms as mayor, and up to 3 terms as a city council member. That means if someone were to serve 3 terms as mayor, that would be 9 years. If they were to serve an additional 3 terms as a council member, that would be 9 years. So the total that a person could serve on the council is 18 years. Again, those are in Article 5, but the term limits are specifically in Section 3A. And that is what I've prepared to present to cover those topics. I would be happy to answer any questions for additional clarification, whether about this or other issues from the charter election.
Anybody have any questions? Matt?
So that is going from this election forward, so ignoring everything that's happened previously, right? So no matter who gets elected in May, that person, whether they've been on council before or not, can serve 3 terms. It doesn't matter if they've already served terms.
That's correct.
Okay.
And just for clarification, so they don't have to be sequential. Someone could serve 3 terms as mayor, 3 terms as council. They could go back and forth, but they would have to resign to run if they were serving in one position and running as another.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, you could serve 1 term as mayor, then serve as a council member for 3 terms, come back and serve as a mayor for 2 terms at the end. You don't have to do it all sequentially. That's right.
Anybody else? Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Craig Holtz, Restaurant Awards.
Thank you, Mayor, council staff. I was asked to give you guys a brief update on the progress of the year 2 of Restaurant Rewards. Recall the purpose and intent of this program is to really support restaurants during their low cycle after the holiday season. We found that January through April is their lower point. We also wanted to demonstrate the importance of restaurants to the community, in addition to introducing the community and the overall greater region to our restaurants. And finally, creating lasting habits and loyalties. Just a brief history for members of our audience. It was launched January 1 of last year as a 3-month promotion for 5% cash back. Thankful to council and some initial results that we saw. An opportunity arose on Valentine's Day of last year to extend it by a month to 4 months, as well as increase the cash back to 10%. We finished the 4-month term of the program last year with 2,800 users, 23,000 transactions, and 560,000 spent at NRH establishments. In a final review of the program, we found that not only customer traffic, but sales trends and online surveys all pointed to supporting the desire to renew the program for a second year. And thankfully to you, council, as part of your fiscal year 26 budget planning, you did just that. So year 2, we started right out of the bat with 10% cash back, again approved by council, and it was a 4-month promotion, ending this April 30th or until funds are utilized. Some changes that took place from year 1 to year 2 is we started out with 2,758 users already instead of 0. We also had a consistent offer out of the chute for 4 months and 10%. And we incorporated the use of video testimonials this particular go-around. And as was mentioned during the debrief last year and was heard by the app developer, much faster receipt and reward processing. So the results through March, with one month available, we have over 5,320 users, a 93% increase. As far as transactions, you can see the number there, a 51% increase. And so far, over $750,000 spent at local food establishments, an 85% increase. The actual transaction amount went from around 20 some odd dollars to the 31 that you see here. And so far to date, we've rewarded 65,340 through the program. I do anticipate, just to foreshadow any questions you might have, we are projecting about 35,000 transactions to complete the program, and around 93,000, just shy of the 100,000 that you guys dedicated. So for fun, I thought I'd share some video testimonials that have been quite effective, and you probably see some familiar faces in here.
Jane Berg. I earned $224 on the rewards program that North Richland Hills offered. Really encouraged me to stay local in North Richland Hills. I could DoorDash that and we would get a receipt on that so I could put it on my rewards program. And I would get a bonus of getting that money back.
I have earned $245 through the Open Rewards program. I love earning money. It's the same thing as a discount. It gives me a chance to see that the city appreciates my business, and I in turn want to appreciate the city offering this opportunity to save money here, save money there. Next thing you know, it's built up to a couple of $100.
My name is Mark Smith. I'm the owner of Patriotic Pig Smokehouse here in North Richland Hills. During that time of year when restaurants are a little slower, a lot of our customers were on the fence about hiring us for catering. We believe that savings helped them choose us over our competitors.
Thank you to Mary and Dakota for their talents and the video orchestration. Fast forwarding to a future June debrief, you can expect final results of all 4 months from the metrics that we discussed, customer traffic trends from Placer AI, as well as sales trends and impacts to our local restaurants, and then finally some community and business feedback. Any questions?
Any questions, comments? Come.
Hey, Craig, I do have a couple of things. So I know we have a cap on the amount of funds that we allow. If somebody's already earned those funds but has not redeemed them yet, and we hit that cap, they'll still get paid out, right? Because I assume that they build that whatever amount to do into the dollar amount.
You mean the 100,000
Correct.
capped? We will. Right now we're foreshadowing that we'll fall below it.
Right.
However, you never know, right? And so that we will monitor that very closely in the event that we have to let the public know, hey, we're about to hit our cap, or petition council for a possible amendment to the amount.
Okay. So they don't keep track of earned funds but not redeemed yet?
No, we assume every earned fund will be redeemed.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if that makes sense. So we're tracking the redemptions, and in fact, we do go through a clearinghouse to make sure people do end up redeeming their funds
Okay.
after the fact.
Great. And I know NRH set the standard on this, and I know other cities are copying us. I
Right.
know Keller has that and other things like that.
Keller's just finished April 1st. I'm not sure of their results. They haven't communicated those. And Watauga is also doing one.
Think that's been cannibalizing any of ours?
No,
So far?
I thought about it, and I don't want to disparage our neighboring communities, but I don't know if they really put a marketing plan together to complement the program. In addition, if anything, we've benefited from maybe people signing up in those other communities hearing about ours.
Okay. And when you do the redemption, you get a survey question in there. Did this program impact your decision to dine at this restaurant?
Yep.
Do we give that feedback to the different restaurants to say, hey, we had 150 people that said that, yeah, they came here because of this program?
We did not do that last year.
Okay.
We do give the feedback to the restaurant that, like Mark had, we told him how much he got from the program last year, and we intend to do that again this year. But
Good.
as far as people liking, to your question about referrals, we can do that.
Okay.
For this one.
Good. Great program.
Anybody else?
I have a question, Craig. Is there any way to tell if they're NRH residents or if they're out of NRH?
Yes, we can, and that's the beauty of this program. Last year, we found about a third of the participants were outside of NRH. When the program completes on April 30th, we'll get that intel to see what communities are from by a zip code. So it'll be really interesting to see how much we're pulling from outside.
That will be.
Anybody else? I'll say this, I've heard more than one person say, from a loyalty perspective, that they, we'll just use Chick-fil-A as an example. Instead of using the Chick-fil-A over in Hearst that's just on the other end. They'll drive to the other one over on Proof Snow or one up there. They go, well, because I'm going to get 10% back. I was like, oh, yeah, there you go. So that's easy. So we'd view this as a much positive response from last year even, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was at a wedding on Saturday, and they were serving, we were in Waxahachie, serving Patriotic Pig. Matter of fact, they came over to me, the parents that were the paying people. They came they came over to me, they go, well, and they're from North Richland Hills. I said, well, we ordered Patriotic Pig. I said, did you keep the receipt? They go, oh, yeah, we're getting our 10%. Caps at $50, but
They, Patriotic Pig has done a fantastic job leveraging the program for their catering.
they absolutely have. Yep.
Yeah.
So, anybody else? That's it. Thanks, Craig. All right, we're going to talk about the efficiency study recommendations. This is going to be a multiple person, but starting with Caroline.
Evening, Council. The efficiency study effort, let me back up, completed in November, resulted in 60 specific recommendations across 4 categories. But it's important to keep in mind that when we say permitting, we're approaching it from the standpoint of our customers, whether it's a developer, a builder, a homeowner, or a trades contractor. From their perspective, they just want a permit or a request approved, and to them, we are the city. They don't recognize the different internal groups necessarily. Some permits live wholly within a specific work group, but many cross the lines between departments and working groups. You'll see on this slide how the recommendations are allocated among the departments. So of course, planning, building inspections, engineering, and then a small snippet, that other 2% is utility billing and fire. Important to note here that we have some that are dedicated to these specific groups. 28 of the 60 recommendations are actually shared between more than one group. So the status of those recommendations, we've broken it down, as you can see here, either by in progress, something we're working on, deferred, not started, an existing process, or complete. For clarification, deferred, as the name implies, just means not now, and that can be for several reasons. We've had some staffing challenges, thrilled that we're now fully staffed in building inspections, and that kind of speaks to why some of those may not have started yet or have been deferred. In some cases, some of the recommendations, we question the feasibility of them, or it's just not a good time right now. And for existing processes, those are things, once again, it's kind of self-explanatory, that are already in place, but for whatever reason, were not captured in the study or things that were maybe deemed to be an upgrade to the system in their opinion, but they're actually capabilities we already have. So by category, you can see these are the 4 main categories of recommendations that Matrix's study provided. So 9 are customer engagement recommendations. This is going to be things like online meeting schedulers, more comprehensive checklists, updates to the website, management and administrative recommendations, 22 of those. Things like reducing the need for SUPs, cross-training frontline staff. Process improvements, 10 of those. Things like standardized review timelines, pre-application review thresholds, and technology, standard EP&L reporting, updating dashboards, exploring opportunities to use AI. And then, and you can see here color-coded how those fit into their status, whether they're deferred, not started, in progress, et cetera. And so just to set aside things that we're already doing and remove that from the scope. So this slide just builds on the previous one, taking out existing processes and showing those actionable recommendations. Now, we're still showing that deferred category. That's the top of each column in purple. Those are the ones that right now we are not taking action on intentionally. But that's just so you can see across those categories where we stand with status. And just want to point out that as part of this, within the recommendations, one immediately stood out as a good opportunity to use our internal Greenbelt and Links-U resources. The image on the right is a wonderfully simple depiction from the study of what is actually a very irregular and variable process with high customer impact and therefore high frustration potential. So this is something that we are going to be looking at with that Greenbelt or Links U group. So this is just kind of that. I wanted to introduce this with kind of more high-level information. Now I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie and then Corey.
Good afternoon again. So as far as our progress, right now I'm just going to talk about the building and permitting side. So again, we've talked about the vacancies we had in the positions. So that kind of gave us some opportunities to assess the job descriptions, which was one of the recommendations that Matrix had for us. As an example, we had a vacancy converted, so we did have a vacant plans examiner position. We have converted that to the assistant building official, which I introduced you to earlier today. Along with that, we had an internal promotion because we promoted Cody from a building inspector to the ABO position. Now we have an open building inspector position. So we've taken that opportunity to reassess that job description and make sure that when we hire in, that's really the job that we want to hire them in for, those same duties, or if we want to make modifications, we're doing that now. We were able to create that position, which was a natural promotion for that building inspector. And then we're looking to the future. So we're proactively evaluating the senior building inspector position. We do anticipate a vacancy coming up due to a retirement, maybe not immediately, but here pretty shortly. So again, we're taking those opportunities to reassess these job descriptions to ensure that what we're hiring for is what we need today. And then again, we've onboarded our new building official. So again, I think that's going to give us some stability to make some more recommendations. As far as training and cross-training, there was a recommendation to cross-train the frontline staff. So we have taken that opportunity to cross-train our building inspectors with code compliance inspectors, where they may not be frontline here in the building, they're still frontline out in the field, because when people are interacting, that's who they're interacting with. So we've been able to cross-train the inspectors with the neighborhood services code compliance officers, and then also some of the CSA positions up front. So that's really been noticeable with our single-family rental ordinance. Both sides of the house and neighborhood services and building inspections are taking those phone calls, and we're able to get all of those scheduled and assessed using both those team members. And then additionally, those inspectors, the building inspectors and our code enforcement inspectors are conducting those inspections and following up on those short-term rentals, but I'll get into that into the next presentation. So that's an example of where we've done some of our cross-training.
Hey, Stephanie, can I ask you a question back on that Venn diagram? How many people do you have in those different, like an inspector role and additional support, and internal support?
So on the building inspector position, we've got 3 building inspectors and 1 senior position. On the code enforcement side, we've got 5 code enforcement officers and a lead code enforcement officer. On both sides of the house, well, on neighborhood services, there's 2 customer service assistants or customer positions. And then on the building inspections, we've got 3 customer positions.
And is everybody participating in the cross-training, or are you going to have, or is it just key people, or?
So far, everyone has been participating in that cross-training. And honestly, we had so many vacancies on the building inspection side, we really did lean on code enforcement to help fill those gaps where they could. And then one of the other recommendations was to utilize the hub or the dashboard capabilities within Tyler. We have just now started doing that. Some members have been using these more frequently, but now we're really rolling it out to all the staff members so that they can have their own personalized dashboard to capture those items they need to. So these are just 3 different various snapshots I took of different monitors. This is what they see when they log into the system. So based on what their need is, if it's HR or finance, building inspections, anything, they can customize it and then have it as a real quick click, and then it'll open up another window into what they need to research. And I think I'll turn this over to Corey.
Okay. So this slide just kind of shows a couple of additional recommendations from Matrix on team building and interdisciplinary coordination. As Caroline mentioned earlier, most of our work crosses boundaries and doesn't just stay in one lane. And I think that the Matrix team identified that we could maybe do a better job of internal collaboration amongst the different internal work groups. And so we kind of have made a concerted effort to improve the team building efforts, even in kind of informal channels with, breakfasts and those sorts of things. But then the second point here was refine the role and functions of the Development Review Committee to follow best practices. And that's something I think that we've taken a pretty big step forward in that has really boosted the collaboration internally. Our current Development Review Committee at the city is quite large by code. It involves people from essentially all departments of the city, which is great if you want a lot of feedback and information. It is not great for streamlining processes and getting really actionable results from meetings. And so we've kind of started a subgroup or a core group of the Development Review Committee, which you see listed there. This aligns more with a typical kind of best practice for Development Review Committee in other cities. And so we've started meeting with that group, even if we don't have our large Development Review Committee, we meet with this group at least once a week. And we're talking about any active projects. We'll throw plans up on the screen and look at them together so that we understand if fire department has a question or if engineering has a question, we can all kind of understand where they're coming from when they're asking those questions or making comments to the applicants. So we have a lot of new faces, as Stephanie just mentioned here, in the group as a whole in development services. And so we're learning from each other throughout that process. Couple of additional recommendations here were to really provide a more unified approach for the applicant so that they didn't have to go one place for one building inspection request and a different format for health or a fire inspection, and then we're doing engineering by email or something. So the goal was to just streamline all of it into one portal, into our enterprise permitting and licensing portal that we were using for our current building and plan review. And so everybody's jumped right on and gotten started on implementing that into the system. I know Bo and the engineering team have worked really hard on getting their civil plan review into EPNL through a lot of testing. We've worked out a couple of different avenues that's going to go for initial plan review and then also for the actual infrastructure construction permit. I would imagine that'll be live in the next week or so. We were shooting for today, but we're right there on that one. Fire inspections also was using a different system for requesting those inspections than the one that we use for building inspections, which doesn't make any sense. So we're now all in one system. Those are being entered manually right now just to make sure everything is, we're not missing anything, but it's looking pretty good. So that'll be live for the customers to use to request directly in the next couple of days. Pre-application meetings is something that we have been doing. It's not something new for us. We've been holding pre-application meetings as they request of the staff on an ongoing basis, but the Matrix team had several recommendations in this line. A couple of them, to Caroline's point earlier about there are some things that we've deferred. We've not said we're never going to do this, but we've said they're not a thing that we would recommend implementing right now. A couple of those on pre-application meetings were one, establishing a requirement that we hold pre-application meetings for certain types of permits or applications, like if you were going to have a zoning change, some cities would have a requirement that before you can submit a zoning change application, you're required to have a pre-application meeting with staff. We don't have that in place currently. We don't recommend that we implement that currently today. We believe that there are many applicants that are used to going through the processes with us, and having an added step would just slow the process down or create meetings for the sake of having meetings and wouldn't necessarily provide a lot of value. Another recommendation they had was charging a fee for those meetings, and while we're certainly open to looking at the fees as a whole, at this time we felt that implementing a fee for that meeting may dissuade people from requesting those pre-application meetings, and in our opinion those meetings help not only the applicant but also the staff so that we can be aware of red flags early and make the process smoother for everyone. Our assumption is that if we require that meeting and charged a fee for, or if we charged a fee for that meeting rather, that people would try to get around having that meeting, and we would just be answering the same questions in different one-off situations by email and phone. So our recommendation at this time was not to do those things. But a couple of things that we are looking at doing based on these recommendations, which were to establish some thresholds of what we would want from the applicant when they request that meeting, and then also to allow for online meeting scheduling. This is just a quick glance at our website. We've been making some modifications to the city website on the development side. One, just to kind of take a more friendly approach rather than a very formal informational approach that was written previously. So we have a couple of different options here for meeting with staff. The first one is a really informal meeting only with planning staff, so they can ask us what types of applications might be necessary. Conceptually, does this make sense? Are there any major roadblocks? Like, how does the council feel about apartments in this commercially zoned property? That's a pretty easy question for us to answer. So we don't need the whole team of 8 or 10 staff members to meet with them to talk about that. But so we have that option there. That option, they actually can just immediately come on and book themselves. They don't have to call us or anything. We put this on the website last week. We didn't advertise it or anything, and we've already started getting application requests. So people that are there and are clicking around are finding it even without kind of a major advertisement for it, and it's working really well. We've recently had a situation where it's very, very rare, but it does happen, where occasionally we're all in meetings or offsite or whatever it may be. And if somebody comes in to meet with us, it's very frustrating for them to not be able to get FaceTime with somebody in planning immediately. And so we felt that having this available where they can just immediately go to the kiosk and set an appointment with us that afternoon, we're hoping that will help in those situations, though they are very, very rare. So the second option here is for the formal pre-application meeting. Those are meetings that we're already having. Sometimes they're set up by us, sometimes Craig's setting them up. It kind of just depends on where the applicant comes into the city from. But we are meeting with them on a group basis where they can ask fire and engineering and planning everybody questions at the same time. We have started meeting with those groups kind of more formally on a formal schedule now, along with our core development review committee meeting. And that application is also available on the city website on that same page. So this one is a little bit more detailed. It does require that they submit a project narrative and a concept plan and that sort of thing, so we can see based on what they provide to us who all we need to have on the meeting on our side. If it was a business that required, or that was maybe had a restaurant, we would want to make sure health was included, that sort of thing. And we've gotten a lot of requests about, well, what day do you meet with applicants? And we didn't have a formalized day, so now we do have that, and it's good to just kind of have that standing placeholder on all of our calendars. So, public notice sign recommendation. This is not something that I saw coming in the efficiency study, but they did recommend that we update our public notice signs to be more modern and informative. They recommended informally, I guess it's not written in here, but that we add case numbers to the signs so that people could call and get information about a specific case. We are, in the spirit of efficiency, recommending that we don't do that, but rather implement a QR code on our zoning signs so that applicants can scan that and be taken right to our planning public hearing hub. This works now. You can scan it if you'd like, and you can get a little snapshot of all the upcoming public hearings. So those will be rolling out sometime this year. We're still in the process of getting pricing on the signs, but we'll make that change sometime in the coming months. The last thing that I have to talk to you about this evening is not something that you are unaware of. The code amendments, the text revisions that we've been bringing forward to you, we've, I think, started even before the efficiency study wrapped up, but it was not surprisingly called out in several different recommendations from the Matrix Group that we look at those situations where we have property-specific approvals that are being required for things that are consistently approved. So we should look at and evaluate internally whether there are some text revisions that can be implemented so that those would be unnecessary. This is just a snippet of some of the recent text revisions that have come before you from those previous agendas for things like a third wall sign on a commercial building, or the rear yard open space requirements, or the garage enclosures, all those things that people were seeking either an SUP or a variance for in the past and are now able to move forward a little bit more smoothly on those. Just to kind of give you a little perspective, this is a snippet from the accessory structure regulations, but just to kind of tell you where we would begin if we were looking at revising a code or should there be a code revision. We look at where are we seeing the most requests for deviations from the code. And so in this case, you can see the floor area, wall height, and roof pitch, which is just a little preview for you for later this evening. But we look at those where we're consistently seeing requests and then they're being approved. So just for a refresher, this wall sign text was revised last summer, last August. Then in January and in February, you approved additional modifications. And then this evening, we have the kind of the final one in this slide here, at least with the accessory structure regulations, which would have removed a majority of the SUPs that were requested for accessory structures in the last few years. That is all I have for you this evening. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
There we go. Anybody have any questions there? No, yeah.
One question, it may be related to these efficiency audits in general. How are you going to measure sort of maybe it's a polite question, how are you going to measure sort of the progress from where we were to where we're trying to get to? Just, permits, number of processing times or surveys or something of that nature?
Yes, so all of that. It'll be, processing times will be one indicator that we'll be able to look at. And then at a certain point, once we've kind of implemented some of these outward-facing recommendations, we'll do a survey of the users to see if they're finding it. And then another way, which is very informal, but how many of those frustrated people are bubbling up to Caroline or to me or to you all. And already, I think that would be less, although I'd probably have to defer to Caroline because I don't necessarily get those calls first if someone is frustrated. But so it'll be different ways depending on what the recommendation is, who the customers are for that recommendation. I'll also tell you that in the fleet area, we have already implemented several of those recommendations. You're gonna see the benefits of that a lot in the budget process as we enter into that. But that's one where the customers are internal. So we've already gotten a lot of feedback from the internal customers, police and fire specifically, about they're pleased with the implementation of the new recommendations that they've done so far. So I'm excited for y'all to see some of the things that are coming up in the budget. You didn't ask this question, but we just finished capital budget reviews, or I did, and I'm just all of the efficiency training, the lean training, and then coupled with these recommendations, I can tell you that directors are putting that to use, and I think you're going to see some differences in some processes just as we move forward with the budget.
Thank you. Kel?
Well, Paula, just to follow up on what you just said, are you going to be able to track somehow, as far as the efficiencies, how much we've earned or gained from those different efficiencies, whether it's in fleet or whatever?
We need to figure out what that will look like.
Right.
But it'll probably, my guess would be, so for fleet, there will be probably some money savings, but there'll probably be some elements of the fleet that are sold off. So those types of things we can track those. We haven't gotten that far yet, but
Right.
But those are the things that we're starting to develop now.
Okay. And hey, Stephanie, on that hub dashboard, you said that's customizable, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So is that stuff where like they have metrics out there, it has to be done in a certain day or something like that? Can you trigger that where it's a yellow, hey, it's gonna come due in 5 days, this is gonna be a yellow, you need to look at that, it's red, it's past due?
Yes, I haven't tested out all the different ways they do that, but I know there's charts and things like that, and I know I have some that say, past due inspections, that populates. I just have to click on that card and it'll drill down onto which ones. So yes, those are out there.
Okay, now so managers will use that to help
Yes.
manage the workload
Yes.
and stuff, make sure everybody's doing what they should be doing?
Definitely.
Okay, great. Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody else? So a couple things. I think foundationally, I'll just say this. Do you believe that the Greenbelt training is helping from, now I have this information from an implementation perspective, the Greenbelt training helps you implement and execute? Yeah? Okay, good. Just making sure that investment's paying off, right? Second, I look at some of the not started and the deferred defined to me as wait to implement. Are we doing that for bandwidth in a lot of cases so that we can do it internally and basically socialize it and get to be part of what we do? Or is it just we're just picking the low-hanging fruit first?
Well, we do pick the low-hanging fruit first because we can get those done. But a lot of those deferrals, or some of them relate to, there might be some budget requests needed. Some of them that I can think of, we are going through our Tyler or Intergov software and figuring out where we might need to implement some changes to improve the process. So that's just taking time. And we're actually going to get our Green Belts and Links to You groups involved in that, so we can dig deeper into what do we need to change in the system in order to make it easier for the customer, in order to streamline that. So again, some of them are budget, some of them are just, it's taking time to sort of dig in deeper into what needs to be approved. And then some of them, as was mentioned, are just, there are recommendations that we don't think make sense for how we're set up now, or we think would actually add more time to the process. So, yeah.
Understood. Systematically, I think when Stephanie mentioned the one about, or no, Corey mentioned the one about case numbers versus using the QR code, I think QR code is actually stepping a little bit closer to today than case numbers, because now you got to create a place in the master file to say, I'm going to hold this case number, for this one, versus I'm just going to do a QR code that takes me right to it. It seems like that's a better solution in my mind anyway. I love that the application is online, that people can fill those out. I think all of these things that all of y'all mentioned so far, and they fit underneath the easier to do business with category as we're coming along the idea of and again, what Corey checked off, those checks of things that we're examining and trying to, like scheduling, because people, that's very frustrating to people. I walked in the door with someone this morning that was asked me, do you work here? I said, sure. And then where do I go for? And I said, well, that first room, and if that's not it, go to the other one over there, because I'm not really sure. And he ended up having to go both, because I ran into him on the way out the door, and he goes, well, I actually had to go to both of them, because I didn't even understand what he actually wanted. But I think each of those going, and what we'll review tonight again, is still in that same path of making things easier, to do business with, and easier for us. The one that was intriguing that you just said was move majority of SUPs, since there are so many on there. I know that takes a little bit of a exercise, because that involves P&Z also in that. So the more we can do on that, the better off we did. I know that was brought up a little over a year ago in the manner of, can we blunt force push it through versus an organized fashion that I believe that you've been, embracing now and giving people time to actually do that. I use the word socialize, be able to socialize it for people to be able to work through. So anyway, those are all good. Very exciting, very exciting. Anybody else? All right, Stephanie, you're back up. Short-term rental registration program update. Are you going to let me know how many times that you contacted each of the places, right?
Yes. Okay, so yes, short-term rentals. So tonight, I know there's a lot of items here. We're going to get through this pretty quickly, but these are some of the items that we're going to discuss tonight. So just as a recap, we put this ordinance into place to balance tourism income with neighborhood safety. The ordinance was adopted back on October 13th of 2025, and the annual registration deadline is always going to be January 31st. However, if you recall, this year we extended that first time for those applicants to register so they could maintain their current short-term rental. So, okay, again, the existing STRs may continue with a permit. That deadline was February the 28th. No new STRs are allowed in single-family zones. And then new STRs will continue to be allowed in multifamily, commercial, and then the town center core zones. And then at the multifamily complexes, there's going to be a maximum of 5% of the units that can be used as STRs. So this slide here just kind of shows you the public communication efforts that the city used to get the word out to all of our residents or our customers. These are the newsletters and news that went out from the city. On top of those other meetings that we had, if you'll recall, there were several public hearings. We presented at work session. There were some P&Z meetings as well in discussion. So this is just kind of a snippet of all of the efforts that we made to communicate to the public that this ordinance was coming. We also had some direct communication efforts. Back in December, after our public meeting, I emailed out all those operators that we had made contact with or that we knew of to make them aware that the ordinance had passed and that the online portal was available for them to register. Out of that email, we had 51 properties registered at that point. Back in January, additionally, we asked for Rentalscape or Deckard to send out a notice to all of the operators that they had identified. And at the end of January, they mailed out 91 letters to operators that they had found through their data mining that were operating STRs. Of that mailing, there were 15 additional STRs that were registered. So here's some key metrics. Right now, we've had a total of 66 applications submitted. 63 have been licensed. That means they've gone through the process. We may be waiting on a couple to catch up on their back taxes, or maybe they've done their first inspection and some things didn't pass. But in all, right now, we have 63 licensed. That also accounts for about 163 active listings. I know that's kind of confusing, but what that means is those different properties have listed multiple times, different platforms. Maybe they listed as a house 1 minute and then, swimming pool somewhere else. But that's where we get all those different listings. On average, there's about 38 per days per year for the bookings. And then the daily rate is about $365, which we are seeing increasing with the upcoming soccer activity that's going to happen this summer. So we are seeing those. We can look at our calendar and it shows you how much those bookings are going to be for those nights. As of right now, we've collected $69,000 in back taxes that was due to the city from these STRs that have been registered. As far as the unlicensed properties, there are 90 that have been identified. Again, this is through Deckard or Rentalscape. 35 of those are inactive, meaning they were probably operating at one time, they're just not operating currently. And then we've got 55 that we believe to be active, not registered. Of those, it looks like there's an average booking of 9 over the last 12 months. And then their rates are about $160. So there's a possibility that maybe this isn't the most current information, that maybe they're not operating and that's why they're not getting all of the current information. We haven't dove too far into that, but that is probably a next step. This is a map. I think we showed you a map at the very beginning when we first came to you. This is the Rentalscape map. I know it's very tiny, but I was trying to get the legend on here as well. So you can see where they are. They're dispersed throughout the city. The red are the ones that are unlicensed at this point. It looks blue on here, but it's really green, are the licensed properties. And then the unidentified ones are in yellow, meaning those are the ones that we think are still operating but have not come in and registered. And then the other listings are the ones that maybe at one time they were listed, but they're just not getting any active data, so they're not really confident that that's an active STR. So on our non-compliance efforts, and I think this is where...
Stephanie,
Yes,
the
sir.
ones in yellow, if they haven't registered, they're no longer eligible, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So on the non-compliance efforts, on the unlicensed STRs, we notified all of those that they were no longer compliant, that the ordinance had passed, they'd missed the deadline, they needed to cease operation. That letter went out at the end of March, and I think that initiated several emails to you all. So several operators have reached out, both to city staff and city leadership, requesting an exemption to that ordinance. We've explained that there's no exemption. Additionally, from those letters, we found that 4 operators have already told us that they are no longer operating as an STR. And then I wanted to make it clear that on the enforcement action on those that are registered, our staff isn't driving around looking at them actively. We're only going to respond to a complaint if it's called in to us, which we've had a few, but not many. So following up on that, these are some examples of the calls that we're getting. Primarily the excessive parking, which we have addressed, and one on the top, these aren't all the vehicles that were at the property. These are just the ones I could get in one picture. So that's one example. And then again, the trash that's being left out, nobody's there. They set the trash out, it gets removed, but nobody brings the carts back in. That's another complaint we're getting. And then I believe the police department did also receive a complaint about a party and the noise, but when they got out there, there was no noise, but it was associated to a Super Bowl party. So in summary, code compliance and building inspections will continue to do these inspections associated with the applications that have come in. There's just a handful that are still waiting to be completed. And when I say a handful, literally 9 are waiting. Code compliance will be the ones to respond to any complaints that are called in. Just like any other ordinance violation, code compliance is going to be the one that goes out. And then I have already started reminding some of our operators that I've been communicating with that they will be getting the renewal notices later on this fall, because that deadline, again, will be January 31st next year for them to re-up and submit their information. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yep, got a question. You shared that there are some unlicensed that are continuing, that you sent a letter out. Is there a next step beyond that plan yet as to what you will do about these folks?
At this time, we're still trying to get a good grasp on what we've got, but I would anticipate an additional follow-up to those notices, letting them know that if they're continuing to operate, that could open them up for more notices of violations and potential penalties.
Okay, but we haven't determined specifically timeline or what the penalties are or anything like that yet. Is that correct?
Well, on the timeline, no. I would refer back to all of our other ordinance violations, because again, this is an ordinance violation that code enforcement would typically pursue. They're typically given 14 days to resolve the issue. I know on these it's not going to be that easy because some of these are booked out through the end of the summer. So they may not be able to cease operations immediately. But the penalties they're looking at would be similar to an administrative citation. So whatever the court would assess.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I got a couple. One of the letters, I'm glad y'all took care of the guy. I walk in, he's screaming at me, I got this letter, I don't even have an STR. And then we come to find out he did have an STR. But apparently his son had filed it under his name, but he said, I'm not on it, but he's got it. Y'all cleared it up, so it's fine. And that was good. The other one I got was the lady saying that she had applied, and I don't know if she's approved or implied approved. I don't know. I didn't get the exact terminology on it. But then she says she got denied, but yet in the ordinance, it said she was, should have been approved. So is there some terminology that we need to work on?
So I'll clarify that. So yes, what it was we had an applicant that applied to use their guest house as their short-term rental on their property. When we started looking through everything, doing the review of the application, we found a conflict with our current zoning that says that secondary dwellings cannot be used as a rental property. So although our short-term rental ordinance does say that, a guest house could be, that's only if it had already been approved to be a rental before it became the short-term rental. So in that instance, we were not even aware that that other structure had been converted into a dwelling. So that's essentially why it was denied, because the zoning was already established that said it could not be used as a secondary dwelling rental. Okay.
Anybody else? I will say this, having been in a couple of meetings with both Keller and Colleyville that just happened to be at meetings we're at, and Keller's going to probably start moving forward with something because they know that they're the new target as far as people shifting up there because they don't have any regulation on it, and they wanted to thank us for doing this so they could shift their direction. And then Colleyville said they were probably going to do something as well, so we kind of triggered a chain reaction to a lot of the local ones around here. So.
Right. And yeah. I will also say, in speaking with Rentalscape last week, they said that Richland Hills is looking at also implementing something. So yes, we're setting the standard.
We'll just send them what we did because we're the standard. Right, Matt? That's what you said? There you go. Okay. All right, thank you. Next item is future agenda items. Does anybody have any proposals for future agenda items? If you do, I'll read the rest of the stuff. Okay, nope. Seeing none. Paulette, City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have just a couple of things to update you on. One is, speaking of efficiency audits, at your next meeting, we will have on the agenda awards for the facilities audit and also the utility billing audit. These are the recommended award is to 2 different firms for each audit, so look for those on your next agenda. On the Legislative and Intergovernmental Affairs Program, the mayor has submitted his recommended names, and those names will appear on your agenda next council meeting. I believe he's probably already talked to some of you individually to let you know some of these, or to get suggestions and to let you know some of these. So they will be on the agenda again on April 27th to appoint members to that legislative task force. And then from there, we'll begin to schedule our first meeting, which is looking like, I was looking at the calendar today, I was hoping to be able to have one towards the end of May, but with everybody's schedules, it is probably going to be the beginning of June before we get a meeting together, but that should give us enough time to complete our work before bill filing starts, at least on the legislative agenda portion. And then on the Capital Programs Advisory Committee, they are about ready to wrap up their recommendations. I would expect that they're going to come to the City Council either that last meeting in May or the first meeting in June to recommend those bond propositions. We're just at the final stages of, we expect to receive preliminary value estimates the beginning of May, I think, or end of April 30th, that we would be one of those meetings that would be bringing them preliminary estimates on values and tax rate impacts. And then their next meeting, they're going to be finalizing the bond proposals and some potential language for propositions. So before that May meeting, they would just meld those 2 things together to be able to come to you and give you that recommendation at the end of May, beginning of June. And then lastly, I'm really excited, speaking of becoming the standard, one of the things that you all outlined for us to do, and one of the objectives, was to become a great place to work. And we presented to you in the fall the results of our own employee engagement survey. And then because those results were so good, we decided to look at, we knew that there was an organization, or somehow workplaces got judged as top workplaces in the Metroplex, and we found NRH, which is a company it's a research company that does employee engagement survey results, and through that company, you can, through those surveys, you can qualify for top workplace awards. And then if you qualify, or your score is high enough, you are entered into consideration as one of the top workplaces in the DFW Metroplex. And that is awarded by the Dallas Morning News and announced in June. And then from there, you could be submitted for top workplaces in the U.S., which is announced in USA Today. So we completed that NRH employee engagement survey, and I think 55% of our employees responded to that survey. And I am pleased to announce that we qualified for several 2026 Cultural Excellence Awards, Top Workplace Awards, and we will be in the running as a top DFW workplace that will be announced in June. So the awards that we qualified for, we qualified in 6 categories, and those were employee appreciation, compensation and benefits, work-life flexibility, professional development, employee well-being, and purpose and values. And again, because we performed in the top 25% across all these categories, across all workplaces, this is not just government, this is also private sector that participated in these surveys, that's what's put us in the running for these top workplace awards. So you will begin to see us announce just that we qualified for these things in the near future. And then if we are awarded a top workplace in DFW in June, we will have a big party. So, so thank you to our employees. Again, this is all based on their feedback. It's all based on what they say about how this place is to work. So So thank you to the employees.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's awesome, though. I think that's a reflection, obviously, of you, Paulette, and your team, all the way down. Respect, listening to people, and just kind of responding and kind of moving forward in a single direction. So thank you. That is an awesome achievement. It really is. All right, moving on. Ready for reading here. At this time, the City Council will convene into executive session at 6:15 on April 13, 2026, to consider the matters authorized by Texas Government Code, Section 551071, consultation with the city attorney to seek advice about pending and contemplated litigation, or on a matter in which the duty of the attorney of the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Texas Open Meetings Act. 1, Jesse Goodfellow versus City of North Richland Hills et al. 2, Travis Scott Gray versus City of North Richland Hills et al. And 3, Bank of the West versus GQ Enterprises Corp. Et al. And then 4, the short-term rental regulations, and 5, TxDOT 26 turn back project. Section 551087, deliberation regarding the commercial or financial information that the government body has received from the business prospect that the governmental body seeks to have locate, stay, and expand in or near a territory of the governmental body with which the governmental body is conducting economic development, or deliberation the offer of the financial or other incentive to such business prospect. 1, the northeast corner of Boulevard 26 and Harwood Road, and 2, Easy Streets Empowerment Zone. Also, Section 551074, personnel matters, to deliberate the employment, evaluation, and duties of the public officers or employees of the city manager. I really hope the lawyer gets to make more words for me to read. I could read that. Well, we just started at 4:30, except, somebody else wants to delay us, but